Okay, sounds good.
Okay, I'm just let Charlene in. I know I had lots of people interested in messaging me for the link and saying they want to watch the recording. Hi, Charlene. How are you going? Oh, you're on mute. Yeah, no, I had heaps of people interested. So hopefully, even if they don't get to...
Okay, here I am.
Hi, how you going?
Now you're on mute.
No.
No.
I can't hear anything.
Oh,
Hang
really?
on. Okay, now I can hear you.
Okay.
Hello, you man.
That's me.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we'll get cracking. I will let people come in as they pop up, Simone. So we are recording this, Charlene. So just so you know, we're going to record this and I'm going to pop the recording up in the groups. So yeah, so your face will be there at some point, just so you know.
Have you ever done my hair?
Yeah, you look beautiful. I wore fur for the occasion. I even put lip balm on.
I was going to wear a jumper that was all nice and brown like yours, and I thought, oh no.
I've got my lippy on and my necklaces.
Yeah, get dressed up for Zoom. I've just got undies on the bottom. No, just kidding. Yeah, it's nice when you work at home to actually have to get dressed up, like get dressed and put some makeup on and actually, you know, feel like you're going to work sometimes. So the reason I guess that we're here today is I'm so intrigued about learning about the moon and how we can harness the energy. It's not something that I have learnt a hell of a lot, and I've only just started to get really intrigued by it, seeing it around and learning a little bit. And I know pretty much not much about the moon. Hence why I thought I'd reach out to the beautiful Simone, who's a doTERRA wellness advocate with us in Courtney's team, in the broader team, and she's a lunar coach, which really intrigues me to understand what you actually do, Simone. And I'm really quite interested to learn a bit more about how we can connect the essential oils and that sort of thing to these beautiful energies and phases of the moon. So I'm assuming that's what we're going to chat about.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hand over to Simone. So thank you so much for being here with our community. I really appreciate this. And she's got a beautiful little presentation. We have a bit of a chat. So all yours.
Okay, thanks, Edwina. So, yeah, I did make a little presentation just because it's easier, because I could talk about this topic forever. It's what I'm most passionate about, and having some slides just to keep me on track and keep me focused is really helpful, so that there's some order and organization to what I'm sharing, because otherwise I'll just go blah, 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 and it might be a bit confusing. So I have put together a little presentation, but, you know, Charlene, if you've got any questions as I'm going through, feel free to ask, either chat in the chat or just ask me. That's totally fine. And you know, if anything comes up as you're going along, feel free just to ask away. Don't feel like you have to wait till the end or anything like that. And yeah, hopefully I can share some information that you'll find to be really, really helpful, and you can learn a little bit more about how we can use the moon and use it for our self-care, and how we can incorporate the oils into that practice as well. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this will work.
And I've got a notepad, so if I'm looking down, it's because I'm writing.
No worries. So I'll go into, I wonder if I can go into present mode. Here we go. Let's move my little picture out of the way here. And over here maybe. And present. Hopefully. Okay, there we go. So can you guys see that all right?
Yeah, now I can.
Cool. Okay. So what I'm going to talk about today is lunar self-care for harmony, alignment, and flow. So let's get started. So what I'm going to talk about today is what is lunar self-care, what this actually means. I'm going to talk to you about the 8 key moon phases. I'm going to go through that kind of a little bit quickly, just because it can be a little bit overwhelming if I talk about it in too much detail, but I will be sharing a bit more about the waxing phases and the waning phases, and what we can, specific practices that we can do for those kind of key phases. I'm going to talk about how you can use the energy of each of the phases and some different lunar self-care practices that you can also do in each of the phases as well. And that's where the essential oils comes in, as well as some other things that are really helpful. So who am I? So I'm an astrologer and moonologer. I'm a certified coach. I've created a journal, which you can get on Amazon. It's the My Unstoppable Life journal. This was kind of, I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And for those of you who are into astrology, I'm an Aquarius sun, a Libra moon, and a Taurus rising. And I think it's that Libra moon and Taurus rising that makes me so passionate about self-care and how we can have more balance and harmony in our lives, and using the moon for those things. Libra and Taurus are both very, very closely associated with the moon, and yeah, and then I've got my Aquarius sun that brings in my quirky side. So I'm really passionate about helping women to create better work-life balance, and just so that you can show you how you can untap your energy so that you can create really easy, really effective self-care routines using the natural cycles, but specifically the moon and the moon phases, the moon cycle, because I've learned after doing this for many, many years that this is a really easy way for us to just have more alignment and more flow in our lives rather than hustling all the time. Like so I kind of began my explorations into the moon back in 2014. I had reached like the pinnacle peak burnout phase. I was trying to do it all. I was trying to be everything to everyone. I was just totally burnt out. And I knew that something had to change. And I came across a coach who taught me about the lunar phases and started encouraging me to start tracking the moon every day and start a journaling practice where I would start tracking the moon and then seeing how that moon energy affected me in my life. And after doing that, I was like keen to try anything and do anything at this stage. I'd always been curious about the moon. I was already into astrology and that sort of thing. So it didn't seem that woo-woo to me. It seemed like something that was quite practical and an easy way to start to be able to slow down a little bit. And so I started this practice, and that's what kind of began it all for me. After doing this for a few months, I started to really start to notice the different shifts in the moon phases and started to incorporate that into my own self-care practices, and led me to eventually led me to where I am now. And then I created this journal, the Myselfable Life journal, back in the end of 2019. Trying to think now, yes, and in 2019 is when I released that. And it was basically because I wanted something, like I was doing these practices, this daily journaling practice and following the moon and harnessing the energy of the moon and incorporating this into my life. And I wanted a journal that I could use myself to follow through on these practices. So that's why I created that. So I thought if it's useful for me, it'll be useful for other women as well. So this does form part of the little practices, which I'll share with you later. But let's talk now about why we might want to look at the moon. It might seem a little bit woo-woo, like if you've never really thought about harnessing the energy of the moon before, it might seem a bit out there, especially if astrology also seems a little bit strange. But even if you're not into astrology, you can definitely use the moon, because if you think about it, the moon is what controls the tides. Fishermen, they look at the phases of the moon so that they know when it's going to be a great time to go fishing to get more fish. Because there are certain times when there's going to be more fish in the sea available for them to fish. Gardeners follow and have for centuries followed the phases of the moon so they know when is a good time to plant seeds and to be harvesting their crops and that sort of thing. And farmers, harvesting their crops, gardeners for, growing particular seeds. And even like Hippocrates talks about the moon, the moon phases in terms of the medicine, and medical, for medical reasons. There's certain times of the moon when the different phases of the moon when it's better times to have certain operations, and not to have operations, because the blood flow is going to be flowing differently in our bodies and the recovery time could be different and that sort of thing. So this is not something that is really that woo-woo when you think about it. It's something that scientists have noticed and explored and investigated and studied for a long, long time. It is something that is very tangible. And, you know, the moon, the great thing about the moon is it is something that we can actually physically see. We don't need a telescope. We don't need to just trust what an ephemeris is saying, that, you know, that planets are in different alignments. We can actually physically see by looking up at the sky what phase the moon is in at any time and actually connect with it, you know, in a very tangible, very physical way. So that makes it really, really powerful for us here on Earth as well. Now, in astrology, the moon represents our emotions. It's what influences our subconscious and our emotional state. So most people know their star sign, their sun sign, but we also have a moon sign, which is what sign the moon was in when we were born. And that moon sign is how we kind of act in the world from an emotional standpoint. So before I told you that I'm a Libra moon, so that means when it comes to my emotions, I do things my emotions happen in a very Libra kind of way. So that's kind of like where the astrological side of it comes in. Now, we also think about the moon as being very feminine. It's like it represents the mother. It's a very, very nurturing. And again, because this connects with our emotions, you know, it does make a lot of sense. And if you know about like yin and yang, we think about the sun as being very yang and very masculine, whereas the moon has very yin qualities, meaning that it's very intuitive, it's very soft, it's very relaxed. So this is the kind of energy that we can get from the moon. Now, do you know that today is a full moon?
Yes.
Yes. So today is a full moon. So this is a really, really this is something that most of us know. Like most people know when there's a full moon coming up because we have restless sleep. We might feel extra emotional because again, the moon, remember the moon is controlling our emotions, right? So when the moon is really big and huge in the sky, of course, our emotions are going to be a lot stronger. And I always find that in the 2 or 3 days before a full moon, I always have quite intense dreams. I have restless sleep and I have peak energy. Like this is when I can just stay up all night and get so many things done. I can be so creative right before the full moon. And this is something that when you start to notice this, when you start to track the moon and you can start to notice this for yourself, it's kind of like big aha moment. It's like, oh, okay, wow, you know. I've got a friend who's a police officer and she says that on the full moon there's always like more calls, more things that she had to do. Nurses will tell you the ER on full moons, it's always more people who are going out and being crazy and doing crazy things. You know, we always think about the moon, you're howling at the moon, being a lunatic, you know, all these sorts of things because of the full moon.
Kids are like going crazy at the moment, so that makes sense. Like
exactly
times a night, fighting, carrying on. Like
I know my son as well. He's been so crazy the last couple of days. Like like it's the end of term and stuff as well. But like I'm also like it's the moon. Like the moon is definitely influencing this kid. You know, like it really does. About pets. If you've got cats or dogs, you'll notice that there's a slight difference in their energy as well. They also know when there's a full moon. So most of us know when there's a full moon, but there's actually 8 key phases to the complete lunar cycle. And the lunar cycle does begin on the new moon, which is when the moon isn't visible in the sky. There's just a tiny, tiny little crescent in the sky. I'll talk a bit more about the phases in a moment. But then it does go through 8 key phases from new moon, the crescent phase, waxing crescent phase, the first quarter phase, waxing gibbous phase, full moon, which we're in now, and then the moon starts to get, so it starts off where we can't really see it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it's the full moon, and then from now for the next 2 weeks we're going to notice that the moon gets smaller in the sky, and it appears to be getting smaller. And this is when we will also notice our energy starts to recede as well. So the last week particularly, probably we've noticed that we have a lot of energy, we've got a lot of focus, we've got a lot of ability to get things done, a lot more creativity, but we're going to notice that there'll be a subtle shift that you will notice. And for me, when we're in the last quarter or the third quarter phase, which is about 5 days before the new moon, that's when I always notice that I have a drop in energy. I start to notice that I'm just a lot slower, I'm a lot more introverted, and don't really want to get a lot of things done, like wanting to sleep a lot more, and this sort of thing. So I will talk about that a little bit more in a bit more detail shortly. So the thing is, when you can start to align with these 8 key phases, which I'll share about a bit more, then you'll notice that there's a different energy, a different vibration that comes with each phase that we can then align with. So it's probably not recommended that during the last few days before the moon is new, when we're feeling really introverted and slow and we want just to nurture ourselves, probably not a great time to be trying to launch something or get a big project off the ground, because it's going to be pushing against those energies of the moon. It's much easier to work in an alignment with the moon's energies. And once we have the new moon and the moon starts to wax and we're heading towards the full moon again, that's the best time to start focusing on getting things done, focusing on your projects, focusing on your goals, and trying to bring those things into your life during that phase. Okay. Does that all make sense so far?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so this is what where Lunar Self-Care comes in. So basically with Lunar Self-Care, it just means that we're working with the powerful energy of the lunar cycle so that we can have a lunar-led life where there's flow and ease and balance and a lot less stress. Like when you start to track the moon phases and live in alignment with the moon phases, things become so much easier. Like for me, I'm never going to try and do anything. I'm going to try and avoid, sometimes it's not always possible, but I'm going to try and avoid from that last quarter phase until the new moon, starting on anything new, working on anything big and major, because it's just going to be stressful. It's kind of working against those natural energies. And there are particular self-care practices that we can incorporate into our life, depending on the phase that the moon is in as well. And by doing this, it just helps us to connect with our intuition. It helps us to just be better in tune with our own body and what our body needs at any given time. So, yeah, that's what I really, really love about this. It helped me to stop living so much in my masculine and in that hustle, go, 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 go all the time. Like I was always living in my masculine. And once I started following the moon, it helped me to balance out that masculine energy with much more of my feminine side and live more with my feminine flow rather than against it. As women, we aren't designed to to live in that masculine all the time. There is a place for that and a time for that when the moon is in its waxing phase. And by following these phases, it means that we have half the time when we can be in our masculine and half the time when we can be more in our feminine and tune into that energy a bit more.
Yeah, it makes so much sense.
Yeah, it does, right? Like once you start noticing it, and once you start
as a young woman.
Yeah.
Working in a corporate
and
world.
it's like that, the whole yin yang, right? Like the yin and the
Yeah.
yang, the female, the male. The moon has that yin and that yang. It has these yin and yang qualities.
Yeah.
Now, this is just like a little bit of more like astronomy, I suppose, than astrology or the moon, but it's helpful to know this information. I actually can do a little demo. So the moon doesn't actually create its own light. So when we look up at the moon, what we're actually seeing is the reflection of the sun. So the moon reflects the light of the sun down to us on Earth. So as the moon orbits the Earth, that's how we see the different phases. So I have my little moon here, actually. And what we can do is you can be the sun. Imagine that you guys are the sun. I'm the moon is here and I am the Earth. So you can imagine like you're the sun beaming light onto this moon. So right now we're in a full moon. So what that means is the moon is actually behind the Earth here. The sun, you guys, the sun, are shining all your light onto the moon. And when we look up at the moon, what we see is the whole moon is reflecting the whole of all of that light is being reflected down to us. But then as the moon starts to orbit the Earth and goes around the Earth, we see the different phases of the moon. So you imagine you're the sun, you're beaming your light onto, you're only going to see only half of the light, half of the moon is going to be reflecting light, if you can imagine that. And then it moves around like this. And then when we're in the new moon, you can't even see me, right? because, and that's kind of what happens. The sun, you're reflecting the light here, and us on Earth, we can't see the moon. It's dark because the light is beaming back this way, right? The moon is between the sun and the Earth, and it goes around like that. So that's how we see the different phases, the different shadows, and the different amounts of light being reflected on the moon. So there are the different moon phases, as I mentioned before. The main two phases are the waxing phase and the waning phase. So the waxing is when it goes from new moon to full moon, and then the waning is when it goes from full moon to new moon. So because it's a full moon today, we're about to start the waning part of the lunar cycle. So the whole cycle from new moon until the next new moon is 28 days. And hey, lo and behold, women's menstrual cycle, the average day is 28 days, right? So we can live in sync, not just with the lunar phases, but also with our own moon phases as well. So, this is something that you might find happens. You start to sync with the new moon or the full moon. You start to sync your personal moon cycle with the new moon or the full moon as well. And as I mentioned before, the 8 different phases that the moon goes through. So you can see that little image there. We have the waxing crescent phase, the first quarter phase, the waxing gibbous phase, and the full moon. So in the next couple of days, the moon's going to be entering the waning gibbous phase. And then we'll have the third quarter phase where it looks like a half moon, and the waning crescent, and then it will be the dark moon again. So it kind of moves through those 8 key phases. It spends about 5 days in each phase. And if you're into the astrology side of things, the moon changes zodiac signs every 2¼ days. So I always like to think of the moon's phases. They are what give us our energy. That's how we can kind of get the physical energy. The zodiac signs provide a flavor of the mood that we are in. So so today it's a full moon in Capricorn. So it's a full moon, so big energy, big emotions. The mood of Capricorn is very serious, very hardworking, very ambitious, very goal-oriented, quite serious. So we might feel a little bit more of that kind of mood while the moon is in this sign, where it will stay for the next 2½ days or so. And then what happens when it moves from Capricorn into the next zodiac sign, so when it goes from Capricorn into Aquarius, then we're going to notice that there's a subtle shift. It's still going to be in the waxing gibbous phase, waning gibbous phase, but we're going to have the Aquarius kind of mood influencing us as well. Now, whilst the moon travels from Capricorn into Aquarius, or when it changes that transit period between signs, it's what we call a void of course moon. And this is really one of the most powerful lunar self-care hacks that I guess we can have and utilize, because when the moon is in a void period, I kind of like to think of it as being offline. So this is kind of like, we're not having any of the zodiac, it's not being influenced by any of the zodiac signs. It's kind of like the pure energy of that moon at that time. Now, it's not recommended when the moon is transiting between signs in a void period. It's recommended that instead of like trying to do anything, instead we can use this as an opportunity to rest, reflect, do beautiful self-care practices. It's not recommended that we start on anything new, try and make any big decisions, try not to have really important conversations, because it's believed that if we do that during a void moon, that those things won't come true, they won't come to fruition. There's going to be not a successful ending to those things. And we can find it more difficult to make kind of neutral decisions when the moon is void, or void of course. Now, sometimes the moon is only void for like 20 minutes or 5 minutes. Sometimes it's void for 2 hours or 3 hours. Sometimes it's void for like half a day or more. It's different every single transit. And that's something that that I share about. Like if you follow me on my Insta, I'm always sharing when the void moons are, when there's a long void moon, because it can be really helpful to know that as well. Like if you're planning out your week and you know that there's a void moon on Wednesday morning between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m., then probably not recommended that you organize a big meeting or do anything like that. It's better to do more menial tasks that time. It could be a good time just to do some good decluttering, clearing out your physical space, your computer space, just doing things where you don't really have to use your mental capacity in too big a ways. And instead use that time to do something relaxing, restful, and nourishing. So that's a great little hack that I love to share about, and not something that a lot of people know. So we have that, and so we've got that, you know, that beautiful time. Like we've got this waxing phase of the moon where we know that that's where we can go. We know that after all that go, we're going to have 2 weeks where we can just relax a little bit more, take it a little bit easier. It's going to be, you know, less push and less hustle, and just, you know, really just lots of following up on things and tying up loose ends so we reach that completion. And then also every 2.5 days, we're going to have a void moon where we can do take an opportunity to check in and relax and practice self-care as well.
That's very
so cool. Does that all make sense? Cool. Okay, so the waxing cycle. So the waxing cycle starts, as I mentioned before, starts with the dark moon, which is when the moon is in complete darkness. Then the new moon, when it's a tiny little crescent, the waxing crescent moon, the first quarter moon, which is when it's like a half moon, the waxing gibbous, where it's starting to get bigger. And then, of course, that's kind of the waxing cycle, is that those moon phases there. So the key things to remember when the moon is waxing is that this is when it's higher energy. This is when we plan and grow our intentions. So on the new moon, it's recommended that we set intentions and we map out our goals. Now, I always say that it's good to have some short-term goals and some long-term goals or intentions that you want to set on the new moon. So the new moon might be, so you might set some short-term ones that you want to just get done before the next new moon. So you have a month to focus on bringing those things into your life. And then some longer-term 6-month goals that you will plan to do before the next new moon in that sign. So the next full moon in that sign. So, for example, we had a new moon in Capricorn back in January. And so the intentions that I set on that new moon back in January, I had some that I wanted to have done by today, the full moon in Capricorn. So there's some of those kind of longer term goals that you might have every new moon, that you set every new moon and you focus on every new moon. And then you have your shorter term ones that you're mapping out for until the next new moon. So during the waxing cycle, that's when we plan and grow our intentions. We really focus on those every day while we've got all of that energy. It's a very enthusiastic, positive, focused, action-taking. Abundance and opportunity are some of the key words for the waxing cycle. And then we have the, why is it not going to the next slide? Oh, there we go. Of course, I pressed my space bar like 10 times.
Always the way.
Isn't that always what happens?
Yeah.
Okay, waning cycle. So the waning cycle starts on the full moon. So that's today. And then in the next couple of days, it's going to be the waning gibbous. And then we'll have the last or the third quarter phase, and then the waning crescent. So in the next couple of weeks, ladies, the best thing for you to be doing is to be taking it easy. Notice that your energy is going to start to be receding. It's a lot more reflective, a lot more inward. This is where we can practice gratitude. So all the things that we were focusing on the last couple of weeks, we can be grateful for the things that we did get done, the things that we didn't, that's okay. We can maybe analyze where we could have done things differently so that we can focus on that for the next lunar cycle. It's a time of release and letting go. So on the new moon, on the full moon, that's when we release. So we set intentions on the new moon. On the full moon, that's when we release and we let go of any limiting beliefs or negative thinking or people or things that we don't want in our life that are no longer serving us. We let go of all of that so that we can then reach this point of completion before the next new moon. And of course, and especially from that last quarter phase until, you know, through to the waning crescent phase, we're definitely going to benefit from having lots of rest and restoring and nurturing ourselves, being very gentle with ourselves, because that's, yeah, we're going to find that our energy does start to recede a lot from that last week before the next new moon. Okay, so I'm aware of time and I don't want to like take up all of your afternoon, but I will just like quickly just go through a little bit about each of the phases. I've talked about this already a little bit, but so I just will go through this quite quickly. But the dark and the new moon, as I said before, that's when the moon is in front of the sun. That's when our moon is here. We can't see any light reflecting on the moon because the light's reflecting that way, back to the sun. And this is when we set intentions or set goals, the things we want to manifest and bring into our life. It's a good time to declutter so that you can make space for your new intentions. And it's also great on the new moon just to unplug a little bit, practice lots of really beautiful self-care, do some journaling so that you can really be in the right mindset for bringing your intentions to your life. And then the waxing crescent moon, that's when the moon does start to look a little bit, you know, we start to see that little crescent in the sky. It always looks really beautiful. And this is a time of expansion and growth and opportunity and possibility. Our energy is going to be increasing. So I like to think of this as the seed that you planted at the new moon is now starting, just the tiniest little thing is starting to sprout out through the soil. And so you can start to water that seed, water those seeds, your intentions, and allow any creativity and inspiration that comes your way, like, you know, kind of run with that and flow with that.
Can I just ask a question? Would it be, from a gardener's point of view, doing your seed planting at this time, like literally your seed planting in your veggie garden or something?
Yes, on the new moon. On the new moon and the week after the new moon, that's the time that they recommend that it's really, you're going to have better growth. Your seeds are going to grow better and that sort of thing. And then on the full moon is kind of thought of as the harvest time. Yeah. That's when it's good to like, yeah, pick any herbs and that stuff that you've grown, or farmers will harvest their crops.
Yeah.
And it's thought to be the best time to do that. So there are definitely, like, for gardeners, and you know, there are almanacs, gardening almanacs that use the moon, that, you know, serious gardeners will get these almanacs, and it will tell people, like, based on the moon and also the moon sign, when it's going to be the best time to be planting seeds and harvesting seeds and that sort of thing.
I feel like as a child, like, you're so in tune with things, and like I kind of feel like I knew that, like I know this, but I don't.
Yeah.
It's like we let life and the modern world just crowd everything else out. This intuition.
That's exactly it. And you know, back before we had the calendar like we have now, they had everyone used lunar calendars. They used they had 13 months in a year. They followed the lunar calendar. And that's what people did. Like, that's what they did. People followed the moon. They didn't have the Gregorian calendar that we have, you know, January to December and, you know, 1st to the 31st. And, you know, people lived in a very
masculine when you look at it. It feels very masculine, like when you think about it and look at it, knowing now all of this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And like, that's why, like, in this journal that I created like a little calendar spread page, because rather than following like the month from, you know, January 1st to January 31st, I created like a blank page like this, so that you can do from new moon to new moon. So you can write in when the new moons are and follow like from the actual lunar phases and map out what you're going to do, you know, based on the lunar phases and the moon, rather than based on the actual month. I mean, it's hard not to live in this world without following the actual months, but when you start to have a lunar calendar that you work alongside with, it makes things so much easier.
And when you've got, I guess, your own business, and you can kind of run your own schedule, you can work and create and launch and connect and do all of that around the best times, can't you?
Yes, and I do that, and I always like look at when the void moons are end of the week. Like I usually do, like on a Sunday night, I sit down and I kind of map out my week ahead, you know.
Yeah.
And I seriously look at like when I've got my calendar, I always mark in when the new moons, the full moons, and the quarter moons are, whether we're in the waxing or the waning. And I also look at the void moons, and I make a special note of those, because if there's going to be a void moon during working hours, when I, you know, and I just will try and avoid doing anything that is going to be really
your manicure or your pedi or your massage for that.
That's right. Yeah, it's a good excuse sometimes to take a morning out. Let's do other things. Yeah. Rather than trying to push through it, because you know you'll find when you notice this that you'll find, oh, you'll be like, oh, this is so hard for me to focus today. Like, what's going on? Oh, look, it's a void moon. Like, of course I'm all scatty and like can't focus. Like the moon's void. Yesterday I had to do some work, and it was just like all morning I was just like, oh, this is just such a struggle. And then I was like, oh, the moon's void.
So it was yesterday, because I was exactly the same yesterday. I had to do a PowerPoint for the winter wellness workshop that we were doing, and I just could not get it done. And then like Courtney and I ended up moving it. We're going to move it to next week anyway. So I was like, oh, because she had things that she was trying to get done for leadership. And I was like, oh, thank God, because I just need to leave this presentation alone, because I can't do it. And it was taking me, normally what would take me 5 minutes was taking me 30 minutes, you know?
Exactly. And you know, like sometimes you just have to, like there's certain things you have to do at certain times, you can't avoid it. But when you can be aware that I'm probably going to have a bit of a struggle with this, like I'm going to have some peppermint oil right here by my side, ready to like sniff, like whenever I can feel my focus waning, or some rosemary diffusing, or I'm going to use my oils to help me to get through this, so that I can kind of, because I know it's going to be a struggle. It can be really
and that's exactly what I did. I had peppermint, and was it peppermint and Litzy in the diffuser, and I was just rolling on in tune. And normally I put in tune on and I just like focus like a machine, but I was actually struggling yesterday.
I get like, I do motivated in tune, like, like this combo, like sometimes if I really like, I mean,
that's a great way to motivate when you're procrastinating and you can't just get going. I find that I just like, if I have to do something I really don't want to do, but I know I have to do it, motivate every time.
It's so good. And it smells like candy to me. I feel like it smells like a candy shop or something.
It does. It smells like an orange cream biscuit.
Yes.
With a bit of peppermint thrown in, like with a bit of candy cane thrown in. So the first quarter phase is just where our seeds start to bloom, and it can be a little bit of a struggle. So the first quarter and the third quarter as well, they're a little bit challenging, because this is where we're like, oh, I've set these intentions or these goals for myself. I want to get these done in the next, you know, before the next new moon. But whoa, like, can I actually do this? Have I been over ambitious? Have I been a little bit too, you know, maybe put too much pressure on myself to get too many things done? You can start to have a bit of self-doubt, and things can feel a little bit more challenging during the first quarter moon phase. So again, that's where using some of these oils that can help to keep you motivated and focused, cypress, juniper, rosemary, like getting those woody oils happening in your diffuser, or you know, if you're doing a little journaling ritual in the morning or that sort of thing, like using those oils to help to ground your energy can be really, really helpful, just so that you keep that momentum going and you keep focusing on those intentions and those goals. Don't give up, because that can, you know, that self-doubt, those limiting beliefs can start to creep in a little bit here. And then the waxing givers, like this is like, we've just come out of this phase, like, as you know, because we're in the new moon, the full moon today. So, you know, this is where we're really working to get these things done, and just being really aware of all the details. And, you know, if you imagine that seed now it's about to flower, and it's quite exciting when, you know, we can see a little bloom about to blossom. It's like that kind of energy, where we keep looking at it to see if it's blossomed yet or not, you know, like when you see a little bud about to bloom or flower. It can be important sometimes in this phase, these 5 days, to, like, if you're trying to get a big project finished or get some things done that are really important, you might have to delegate a little bit, delegate some things so that you can focus on what you need to be doing. Don't try and do everything yourself, because it can be, we have that tendency sometimes.
And then the full moon, of course, that's what we're in now. It's peak energy. This is when we harvest, harvest our things that we've been doing. We celebrate, we release. It's always great to do a little release ritual on the full moon where you just write down everything that you know, all the negativity, negative thoughts, negative beliefs, anything like that. Write it all down. Then burn that little piece of paper, release it, flush it down the loo, and just release all of that, release it out.
And what oils are good for that release?
There's a few. I like to, this is where oils like your tea trees and your eucalyptus can be really, they're very kind of cleansing kind of energies. They can be really good to use. Even something like bergamot, because it just helps you with that, getting clear about what it is that you want to be getting rid of as well. Helps you with that clarity. I will talk a bit more about some of the oils that are good for the waxing the waning phase in a sec. But yeah, that would be the one, that's where, things like your tea tree and your eucalyptus and those kind of oils can be really good. If for the Capricorn, depending on the moon sign that each of the full moons are in, you can also draw on oils that are good for each of the signs as well. I mean, that's a whole nother presentation. Yeah. Talking about the signs, but each of the signs have their own qualities that have oils that you can kind of work with as well. That's also something that you can think about if you're doing a little ritual where you want to diffuse some oils or even make a roller. I often share little roller blends or diffuser blends on my Instagram, which can be good for the phase, but also the sign that the moon is in. And sometimes it's just a little bit intuitive as well. You might just think, what kind of energy do I really want to have right now? And, you kind of, you're pulling a tarot card or an oracle card, you kind of go over your oils and it's what feels like it needs to be.
Today I was intuitively drawn to black spruce and grapefruit, which I have never used as a combination before. And I made a little blend up for a new customer. And that's what I was called to make for her. And I was like, I'm going to put that, I think I need that in my diffuser in the office. And that's what I've got diffusing.
And how's it smell? But grapefruit, that's very cleansing as well. That's another one that's very cleansing and releasing, and you've probably picked up on that.
Yeah. And black spruce is good for removing blockages, isn't it? Blockages and negativity. It's a good cleansing oil as well, really, isn't it?
So they kind of got that. Makes a lot of sense, really, that you were you might be why am I what is it about these oils? But it does make a lot of sense when you look at it, because this is all about clearing all that stuff out, so that you can then have this space for the next 2 weeks while the moon is in that waning phase, just to kind of reflect and look at what's working and analyze, and you're still going to be calling forth what it is that you want to be bringing in, but it's from a different kind of overall vibe. It's not that push, get it done. It's more of a inward and introverted kind of energy. So here, so I've got some waxing cycle rituals. So because the waxing cycle from new moon to full moon is a time that we, it's a time of connection and communication and setting intentions. And what you want to do is focus on those intentions that you set on the new moon every single day. So I recommend setting 3 to 5 intentions. There might be 3 that are short-term and 2 that are longer-term intentions, but connecting with those intentions every day. And what you can do is to make an aromatic anchor that can help you to connect with those intentions. So this is, again, it can be quite intuitive as to which oils you want to put into your aromatic anchor. But these are some oils that can be really good for the waxing, for harnessing that waxing energy. Cypress, because that encourages introspection. Copaiba for introspection and assessment. Cedarwood, some of these woody oils, those woody oils, overcoming challenges. So when you're in that first quarter phase and it can be a little bit challenging, using something like cedarwood can be quite helpful. Rosemary, of course, because we want to keep our focus and our concentration happening. Bergamot, good for encouragement and self-belief. Even lavender peace, that beautiful blend, can be good for grounding and balancing when things can feel a little bit like, whoo, a little bit intense as we build up to that full moon. You know, you might like to work with these kind of oils to create that little aromatic anchor. But what you do is you either make a little roller blend, or you have it have these oils by your diffuser, and you sit every morning and you just, you know, you do it, have 5 minutes where or 10 minutes where you can just do a little journaling practice where you're focusing, reminding yourself of what your intentions are, using those oils to kind of provide you with that anchor, and then focusing on those intentions. What are the steps that you need to take, particularly from that new moon until the first quarter phase? Like, what steps do I need to take to make this happen? It's not just running down your intentions and going, okay, universe, give these to me. It's like, what are the steps that you need to take to make them happen? And you need to like kind of look at those every single day and remind yourself of those every single day, to keep them really in your front of center of your mind, and to make them really, really powerful and make them happen.
Yeah, having an aromatic anchor has been really powerful for me in these last sort of 6 to 12 months in achieving my goals, and working through that self-belief, and getting that inspired action, because it's all very good, well and good to have these beautiful goals and use your oils and look at the moon and all of that, but unless you are doing those right actions, and it's been really helpful for me to get clarity around what the actions are that I need to take to move forward.
Exactly. And I think like part of this, like part of what makes this work is that we're not just harnessing the energy that the moon gives us, but we're giving ourselves, it's kind of like a permission slip from the moon in a way. Like we're getting this permission slip to do certain things that really is like, it's kind of like smart goal setting, but in a very feminine kind of way. Like, you know, we're setting up, we've got this on the new moon, was like, what are our smart goals? You know, we want to be specific. I want to do this before the next new moon, you know, like I want to get this done by the next new moon, and these are my steps I'm going to take. So, you know, while we've got that energy and that creativity and that inspiration, we map out our plans and then we follow through on them in the next coming, you know, the next week until we get to that full moon phase. And then we have that chance to kind of go, oh, let's look back at the last 2 weeks. Like, what do I need to change? What do I need to clear out? What's not working? What's not serving me? And so then we have the next 2 weeks to kind of finish up what we need to tie up any loose ends. And it's kind of like that permission to do these things, to go through that goal setting process, but in a gentle kind of way.
Yeah, it's just like having these phases to, you know, do certain things and understand. It just makes so much sense to me now.
Like it's magical in a way, but also it's just like, it's very practical. Like,
it's very practical. Like
practical magic.
Not all woo-woo magic, you know, witchy woo-woo. It's actually really practical.
It's practical. And because you can physically see the moon, you can connect with it. Like you can connect with it. It's not like an intangible thing. That's what I think makes it such a powerful practice. You know, when you start having this integrating the lunar phases into your days, that's where it becomes really, really powerful. I'll just quickly like race through the waning phase. We've got the waning gibbous. This is about relaxing, accepting, reflecting. Our energy levels are going to start receding. It's a good time to practice gratitude. So over the weekend, like get out your you know, if you've got a gratitude journal or just a journal that you write in, like it's good to write down all the things you're grateful for. Do a bit of a declutter as well, can be helpful during this phase. And then the third quarter phase, that's where we're going to do a bit more of a reevaluation. It can be a challenging phase as well. You know, we're going to have our energy levels are really going to start to plummet. So it's important that we have clear boundaries with how we're spending our time, who we're spending our time with. We can do another little mini releasing at this time as well. So anything that's still remaining kind of stagnant since the full moon, we can kind of release those and just finish off anything that we're really wanting to get done, tie up any loose ends. And then the waning crescent, very, very, like very introverted at this stage. This is where we really should be like resting, using this time, those 5 days, just to rest as much as we can, go to bed early, Don't, you know, push through at this stage. Start to prepare for the next new moon. Maybe think about what intentions you're going to set. You know, look back at what you've done the last few weeks. Like, were there things that you just didn't get time to do or you didn't focus on? Like, are they still important? Are there going to be things you bring forth into the next lunar cycle or not? And apply any lessons that you've learnt over the last few weeks. And then, of course, we have the dark moon and the new moon again. So during that waning phase, so this is something that we can apply now from today for the next 2 weeks. Just really like decide on any changes that you need to make. Like if there's things that haven't really been working for you, like now's the time to let go of those and release those. Like maybe you set intentions on the new moon that like you're not really sure why you set them. Like maybe they don't really seem like they're so important now. Like it was only 2 weeks ago, but like maybe that's not, like something's shifted or changed for you in your life and you want to reevaluate those things. And it's all about like, yeah, letting go, releasing, and gentle, nourishing practices. So this is where we can do the baths and add some essential oils to our bath, have our goddess baths. We can do a lot more of our kind of restful practices, like nice gentle walks in nature, if possible. This is that kind of an energy. And you can use oils like juniper for introspection, cypress for cleansing. Oh, that's another one that's good for now. Cleansing and cypress is a good one for the full moon. Yeah, tea tree and eucalyptus, as I said, jasmine. That's a beautiful oil for just optimism, staying optimistic. Lime is also good for releasing emotions. Can be a good one. I always love to do a combo of lime and patchouli. That's always I find that combination really yummy. So yeah, so working with these kind of oils, getting those into your diffuser, making a little blend up that you can roll on your wrists before you sit down and do any journaling or any other little rituals. So basically, like to get started, like it doesn't have to be complicated. Like the first thing that you should do is just like look up at the sky, start to pay attention to what phase the moon is in. Like you don't even have to worry about the signs or anything like that. Like just start looking at the moon phases, be aware of whether it's waxing or waning, and start to notice like these subtle energy shifts so that you can work with those energies rather than against them. And I really recommend starting a daily ritual so that you can connect with the moon. So for me, I'll tell you a little bit more about what I do in a sec, but this could be like starting a little 5 or 10 minute journaling practice in the morning, using cards, writing affirmations, working, of course, with your oils, making sure that you set intentions on the new moon and release on the full moon. So that can be like 2 really simple things that you can just get started with. So today, do a little releasing ritual. And then in 2 weeks on the new moon, like make sure you set some intention, do a little intention setting ritual. That can be like the easiest way to get started. Like it doesn't have to be something that's complicated. But I do recommend, if possible, to start like a little morning practice where you just make a note of what the moon phase is and what the moon sign is, and just make a note of that every single morning. Now, if you're not sure about where to start with this, there are some apps that you can download on your phone. These are ones that I have on my phone that I really love: iLunar, the Moon, and the Moon Calendar. They're just free apps that you can just log in, and that will tell you, like, if you're not sure what phase the moon's in, what signs the moon is in. And of course, journaling, you can just use any old journal, or like my journal that I've created. It actually has a little morning ritual in there where you can note down like the moon phase, the moon sign, what energy we can expect to be feeling. And then there's a little space for you to do some journaling. And I like to pull a card every morning, which just helps me to kind of reflect, like kind of think about what I want to focus on in that day ahead. And like it only takes me 5-10 minutes, absolute maximum, just to do that little daily check-in. And then again, if you do a little check-in in the evening before bed, just have a reflection, like how did you feel today? Like, did you feel any of that moon phase or moon sign in your day? Did you notice a shift in your energy or your mood? And just take a little note in your journal again, so that you can kind of follow up with what you noted down in the morning and see. And that's how if you do that for say 2 or 3 complete lunar cycles, that's when you can start to really notice these subtle energy shifts. You might not notice it right away because we're not in tune to it. Like when we're just living in the hustle and the busyness of life and we're not in tune with the moon, we don't really notice it. But when you start to pay attention, that's when the very subtle shifts start to happen. You know, so my lunar cycle morning check-in ritual, I usually have some incense. I also diffuse some oils, whatever's kind of I'm feeling called to diffuse. I sit in my little sacred space. I get out my journal, make a note of the phase, make a few little notes. I pull a card. You know, it's a very beautiful, grounding, beautiful little self-care practice. So easy. And just, you know, it's just giving yourself that 5 or 10 minutes of me time at the start of the day before the craziness begins, you know. And then the same in the evening, like just sitting in your sacred space, diffusing some oils, lighting some incense, and just make a note of like things that you did in that day. Like, did you practice self-care? What did you do or not do? You know, did you want to have some, you know, go for a walk or eat some food that was really nourishing, or did you want to see some friends, or what were you going to do? Did you do those things? You know, what are you grateful for? What went well? You know, did you notice that your mood or your energy shifted at all? And again, it's just giving yourself that 5 or 10 minutes of me time to close out the day. And it's just really, really beautiful thing that you can do for yourself. And you'll notice that when you do this, that you'll start to see, like for me, I know when we're in the last quarter phase, I know, because my energy is slow and introverted. I know when we're at the peak, you know, about to have the full moon, because I have all this energy. I have restless sleeps. You know, you'll start to be able to map out your month and go, right, well, I'm not going to have a meeting or do an interview or do something like that at that time. It's not going to be the best time to do that because there's going to be a void moon, or I'm not going to be really feeling that creative, or it's going to feel really difficult. So I'm not going to plan for that. I'm going to plan for something else instead. And of course, you can plan out your self-care and, you know, think about what oils you might want to be using, how you're going to anchor into those energies, how you're going to use the other tools that you have at your disposal to your advantage, to make the most of those things. So that's it. That's kind of what I wanted to share. I have no idea how long I've been talking. Oh, an hour. Okay.
Didn't feel like that, to be honest. A good chat always goes just on that hour. Really...
That flew by that time. I thought maybe it was like 35 minutes or something. So sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I did the team call on Monday night, and I'd planned to do about 30 minutes too, and it went to an hour. So
yes, I've got that on my list of things to watch the replay for that over the weekend.
Oh, yeah, it was fun. It was good.
Good morning. I know I have to have an hour for that now.
Yeah. Well, no, Simone, that was really great. It's actually really put things in perspective, and on reflection of just, you know, the last, you know, few weeks, and, you know, like of my life, I can actually start to see that. I can actually see that pattern forming in my month, because I think with having a doTERRA business as well, like I'm speaking purely from a doTERRA business, we're so cyclic towards the month, because, you know, and there's certain things that we do each month, but I found that so helpful. So I'm going to now sit and sort of plan my workshops and my classes and my you know, creation mode when I'm creating content, you know, and that sort of thing for the moon, basically. Yeah. In those
just you can get hold of, like, if you can do like a spread that you can do from new moon to new moon, rather than like, you know, the January one, and you can still do that in alignment with like the actual month as well, because obviously you've got things like the 15th of the month is important and the end of the month is important. Like, these are important for doTERRA, but you can kind of sync it, like when you can make a note of when the full moon, new moon, and the quarter moons are, and when the moon is waxing and waning, you can try and fit those sorts of deadlines and those sorts of things around that as much as you can. It's about awareness. You know, it's not always going to be possible. Like, it's not always going to be possible, but as much as you can.
Doing, you know, like any work, any creation, even just motherhood, if you're at home with the kids, you know, when you can, you know, work those things into your energy levels, and absolutely.
And with the kids as well, like you'll notice, like, you know, if you're feeling this way, the kids are going to be feeling it even more intensely, because they're so intuitive. They haven't got caught up in life like we have, and they're much more in tune with all of these subtleties. And so, you know, when they're going a little bit crazy and you're like, what is going on? You can go, oh yeah, because we're always at a full moon. Like, of course. Like,
exactly what's happening in my house at the moment. What about you, Charlene? Is it happening in your house?
Oh, now I know why Ollie has got so much. I've got no energy at the moment. I'm dead. I'm flat. But Ollie's bouncing with energy the last few days.
That's right.
And up late and just
Yeah.
And,
yeah, if you've been feeling like you're probably like hitting that, you know, that kind of that peak of energy can sometimes happen and you feel like you're hitting a brick wall, you know, like, whew, like if things have been really, really busy and really, really chaotic, like it can be such a nice release knowing that we've got this full moon. It's like, okay, great. Full moon's done. Like now I can start to slow down a little bit and start to do things that are going to help me to, you know, really focus on getting more sleep and focus on relaxing a lot more. Especially if you are feeling really tired. You know, maybe you haven't been having such great quality sleep the last couple of nights, again, because of that moon. So, you know, if you've got the moon shining into your room, it's like the sun almost sometimes. Like,
my mum
it can be so bright.
At night, the moon just comes straight in her bedroom window if she forgets to put the blinds down, and it wakes her up and she's like, is it morning?
Exactly. So it's something that you can just apply, and you know, you don't have to do everything all at once or understand it all at once. Like I think following the waxing and the waning to begin with, noticing when the new and the full moons are, but if you can start a little daily practice and have your oils that you can anchor with, it's going to be really, really, really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to get stuck into that and add that to my journaling and my morning practice, my evening practice, because just to keep a track, I've actually got some little moon stickers that I got with my diary, with one of my journals that I've got here, and I'm like, what do I do with these moon stickers? Now I know exactly what to do.
Now you know exactly what to do.
I'm going to go and put them all in my planner.
Exactly. I've got little moon stickers that I use too.
With exercise and stuff as well, like it's, you know, you try and push through even when you don't feel like going for a big walk or going to the gym or whatever. And I've just noticed just being a little bit more in tune with my personal moon cycle and not pushing through those times, and actually using that time to rest and restore.
Exactly. Like it helps you to tune into that intuition a lot more too, like really starting to listen to our bodies and listening to what we need. Because it's so easy just to put it aside and go, oh, I don't know why I'm feeling like this today, I'm just going to keep pushing through, and you know, you get frustrated with yourself, and it just means you're hustling all the time, and
it just puts you into that, your mindset then goes to a negative mindset.
Exactly.
You don't achieve your goals anyway. Like you might finish your task off or finish that thing, but you're not going to it's, you know, you're not working to, you know, achieve those really positive goals because you're in that.
Exactly. And I think we can also set so many goals for ourselves. Like we have so many things that we want to do, but these practices, like on the new moon, like just setting 3 short-term goals, 3 things that you want to focus on for the next month, like rather than all the things, you know. That in itself can also be just a really beautiful practice. Like rather than writing down 100 things that we want to do, let's just focus on 3 things and do those 3 things, really focus on those 3 things with intention, and you know, take inspired action on those things every single day to make them happen. Really helpful.
Fancy the oil of inspired action.
Oh yes. I have that in my face serum that I have every night. So
I use blue tansy in my face serum at night too. It's beautiful. And I've got a blend that I have for my inspired action when I sit down at my desk.
Ooh, that looks so
my
beautiful.
Instagram grid if you want to have a look at it. I talked about it in my little.
What have you got in there? Blue tansy, obviously.
Clary sage, and one other. Blue tansy, Litzy, clary sage, maybe frankincense. I can't remember now, but I think there's 4 oils in there. Cypress. Yeah, motion and flow. Inspired action, clarity. Clary calms like the clarity. And whatever it was. Blue tansy. Beautiful. I love it. It smells like lolly.
That's what I think Motivate smells like. It smells like lollies.
Have you smelt blue tansy, Charlene?
No.
Oh, it's not a cheap oil, so it's one that you save your points up for.
Yeah.
But it is an incredibly powerful oil, and it's so unique, and it's blue. That's what makes it the blue.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It is so unique. It's like, how do you even like, it's kind of woody but sweet or something, like sweet woody, or
it's a really unique aroma. Like you pop it in the diffuser and it just, I don't diffuse it very often because it's expensive. I use it in mainly roller blends, and my facial serum, because it's awesome on a side note for redness and inflamed skin, like, you know, get that redness and that sort of thing. So it's really great for that, and it's anti-aging. But popped it in the diffuser once, and it was just like, I felt like I was on drugs or something. I actually felt quite high from diffusing it in my office, and I haven't diffused it since. It's really quite powerful. The oils are amazing. Anyway,
I wonder what that would be like with having a tea ceremony with oolong, because oolong, if you drink oolong in a certain way, you can get tea drunk.
yeah.
So infuse that oil while drinking oolong.
And is that when you kind of bubble it through your mouth when you drink the oolong?
The way it's done is you drink, instead of, like, I say, you infuse 3 grams of tea to about a cup, 250, 300 mils of water. But instead of doing it like that, you take 8 times the amount of the oolong, and then you still infuse it in only a little bit of water. But you then have, you're only drinking like this much at a time, and you scull the whole thing, and then you wait a certain period of time, and then you pour the tea in, but you let the tea sit for a little bit longer before you drink it and strain it, infuse it. And you just keep doing that, and over a time, it becomes tea drunk. But when you're slurping a tea, and you're putting the tea through your mouth, through your teeth, that is to enjoy the aromas of the tea and the flavors of the tea, just like when you're swirling wine, when you have wine. So when you're slurping the tea, it's to bring the oxygen, the air into the tea, and
okay.
You can actually taste it.
I did a tea ceremony in China, and that was years ago, and they taught me about that. So that's why I thought, oh, interesting. A bit like cacao. That gives
I was gonna say about cacao as well.
Opens up. They're quite medicinal and ceremonial, and it's just so lovely, I think, to come back to these beautiful things that Mother Nature has given us, like the moon, essential oils, tea, cacao, and actually use them not just as, I don't know, whatever, things that taste good and things that smell good, and actually use them for what they probably were created for in the first place. So
exactly. Plant medicine, beautiful. Nature medicine.
So good. We're very lucky that we're in this this world where we sort of are learning and understanding all about how we can harness the energies of nature, basically, to live a much more aligned, natural, healthy life. Because I know myself, the just being well and having that clarity of mind and focus when you're living a lot more in alignment with nature, makes such a big difference. And now learning about the moon, it's just that extra little thing that I feel like it's been a bit of a missing link for me personally. And it just makes, I don't know about you, Charlene, but it makes so much sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
When I first started, I was kind of like, I was a bit skeptical. Well, not really skeptical, but I was kind of like, oh, I'll just see. Like, I was just keeping an open mind, and like wasn't really like.
I know that the farmers, and you plant the seeds at certain times of the month. Like, I knew all about that, and but it's just interesting to learn a little bit more in depth of it. And it'll be really interesting, like you say, to go and have a look at the moon. My son's got a telescope, and it's pretty amazing telescope. And it would be interesting now to actually journal what you visually see of the moon every time, there's a change. So
Like, I'm always looking out for the moon. My son, like, he's only 5, but he's always like, Mummy, I can see the moon, and he knows the phases, and he'll tell me, you know, and it's like, it's so cute because I've just talked about it so much with him, and it's like the cutest thing. But you know, something I also recommend doing is going for a moon bathe. Like, normally on the full moon, I would be out there, like, literally, like, just meditating under the moon, you know. But today is like really cloudy and grey and miserable, and I can't see the moon at all. But I know she's up there. But you know, it's not quite the same. But if you can moon bathe, that can be a really beautiful way to connect with, you know, get into tune with the moon phase as well.
Yeah, beautiful. It's beautiful and clear here in Newcastle today.
Oh, you're lucky.
And we've seen the moon the last couple of nights. My boys are the same. They're really in tune with it. Archie's first word was moon.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah, because on our back deck, we look out over the ocean. So you see the moon you can see the moon quite well from our back deck. And, you know, and you can also see, you know, when you see it during the day, and he would always, as a little boy, spot the moon. And it was his first word was moon. We're like, it's the moon, it's his first word. So I always remember that. So I call him a bit of a moon child. So he's our moon child, and he is the one that is really in tune. He's very sensitive to energies, and you know, he's been up 4 or 5 times a night the last couple of nights, and having bad dreams. And I've been a bad mum and just saying, go back to bed. I'm really tired. Go back to bed. I'll give you a surprise if you go back to bed. Buy some Pokemon cards. But anyway, so it's interesting. It's really interesting. Kids are so in tune with it, and I definitely am going to start the journaling too, and taking notes, and I'm going to include the boys in it and teach them about it. They know a lot more about the solar system in general than I do, because they're learning about it in school. From that science perspective.
Yeah, you can totally include the kids. And you know, you can teach them about, like, there's like this is the strawberry moon that we're having, the full moon. It's a strawberry full moon, and you can teach them about those things, and just the different qualities of, you know, it's the moon.
Is there any I know you've got your journal and whatnot, but is there any books or anything else that you could, even like that is a bit child friendly, that we could use with the
there are some off the top of my head, I can't remember the names of them, but I do have a little list of like kids books that you can, I mean, there's lots of women's books. There's like the ones like there's Ezzy Spencer's book,
I've got that one,
and I've got them all here behind me, like, you know, there are Muse with the Moon, and there are quite a few like that, but they're more grown up adult books. But Muse with the Moon's quite good, because this has got this one here, Muse with the Moon. It's by Joe Caldrick, and it's got, like, the kids would probably like this. It's got color pages and little things that you can do, like coloring ins and little lists that you can write and things like that. It goes through each of the phases, and quite visual, like something like that would be good. But I can let you know. I can.
And even a list, even if you want to share us, and I'll put it with the recording when I post a recording in the group, and I can add the list for women, obviously, and your journal, and you've got a free download.
Yes, so if you there's a free download, and that has a lunar calendar in there, and also some little cards that you can print off for each of the moon phases with affirmations on them.
Beautiful.
So if you're going to do the journaling practice, then you can use those cards to, you know, work with as well. And
now what's your membership? You've got a membership,
the Moon membership is my monthly membership, where I do a full moon and new moon circle on Zoom every new moon, full moon, and I've got heaps of resources in the membership area. I do a different masterclass every month on a different topic, like how to work with the zodiac signs and the natal moon, and just different little masterclasses and different resources, and also there's a Facebook group where I kind of talk about the daily moon energies and mood in there. So the moon membership as well. It's enjoy it.
I'll pop all those links and everything with the recording in the group as well. And then you're on Instagram as well, so you share amazing, incredible.
I do share like the daily, kind of pretty much the daily moon as well in there. So
it's great, and different blends to use, and different oils and similar, you know, different, like, that's really great. So what's your handle at Instagram?
Simone Samuel's Wellness.
Simone Samuel's Wellness. Okay, I'll make sure that I pop that in there as well. And is there anything else you need to add?
I think that's all. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to share about this. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to start to become very passionate too. I loved it. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all the knowledge with us.
Thanks, Charlene. Thanks for being here.
Really appreciate it. And I have learnt a lot. I love it. I'm going to get a bit more moon focused, moon aware.
Have a little bit more moon in your life. Have a lunar-led life, as like I like to say. Have a lunar-led life. Lunar living.
Yeah, lunar living. Love it.
That sounds good.
Pardon?
That sounds really good.
Yeah, lunar living. I love it. Okay, did you have any questions, Charlene?
No, I don't. Thank you. I think you covered it all. That's awesome.
Beautiful. All right, ladies, I love you and leave you.
Okay. Thanks so much,
Bye.
Adrina.
See you.
Bye.